With the new year underway here at the John Locke Foundation, we are actually beginning our fourth decade of service to North Carolina with a new CEO. Amy Cooke is one of only 4 people who have ever held the CEO position since the John Locke Foundation actually opened its doors in 1990. Today, I am delighted to share with you and introduce you to Amy Cooke. Amy, welcome to North Carolina. Welcome to the John Locke Foundation.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me here today.
Okay, so it seems that you brought the cold with you from Colorado, where you are coming from. What gives with that?
Right. Well, everybody kept telling me North Carolina was warm, and I have
July, August. Just wait.
I have yet to find that. I think I was watching the news. I think it was yesterday, and they said that, was it Sunday, was the coldest day since November. I think I was here in November when you guys had your last coldest day, and I had my husband with me, and both times he keeps saying, he goes, I'm not believing that North Carolina's actually warm.
Okay, so you brought the weather from Colorado with you. Apparently, you were not able to bring your beloved Colorado Rockies, however, to North Carolina. You're a big-time baseball fan.
I am. Actually, I learned to love baseball, and I should add to this radio as well, growing up as a kid in St. Louis. So I'm a little used to heat and humidity and, of course, baseball. But I learned to love baseball by sitting in my backyard with my mom, who went to every single World Series game in 1944 when it was the Browns versus the Cardinals.
Oh, my word.
She watched the Cardinals win that series. So she watched every single game. But I learned to love baseball and radio, both by sitting in the backyard with my mom, listening to Cardinals games being called on radio. So I learned that's where I came to love both.
Well, you were going to love North Carolina in terms of your affinity for sports. We've got a couple of really cool minor league baseball teams here. And we also, of course, have all sorts of other sports. And you're going to have to choose a driver in NASCAR. You're going to have to choose a college football and basketball team as well. So you got a fun time
Somebody
coming.
told me I have to find an ACC team.
You do?
So just so everybody knows, my background from Missouri was Big 8, Big 12, SEC. And what I've heard is, don't even say SEC.
That's right. That's right. Those fighting words here in North Carolina. So Colorado, obviously a wonderful state. It's beautiful. Everyone wants to live in Colorado, just like everybody wants to live in North Carolina. So why did you make the change and come here to the John Locke Foundation?
Well, who wouldn't want to be here? I mean,
Exactly.
North Carolina has a lot going on. Well, first of all, there's nothing better than being part of a state or coming to a state that is enjoying an economic renaissance the way North Carolina is. And Colorado has had much of that same type of economic renaissance. And there are some similar public policies that actually come into play for both states. But why North Carolina specifically, and why John Locke Foundation? Well, again, who wouldn't want to be here? But I get to be a part of an organization that for the last 30 years, and going into its 4th decade, as you mentioned, for the last 30 years has been laying a foundation of public policy that when you had the right or courageous elected officials who have looked at that and said, you know what, I think we're going to try some of those policies, actually put them into place, and now you see this economic renaissance that is going on in North Carolina with hundreds of thousands of jobs created. The state has flattened out its income tax structure. This is a state whose state legislature, think about this, you have elected officials, and I shouldn't say you, it's we now, I get to call it we, have state elected officials that have the foresight and the courage to budget to rate of inflation plus population, and then put the rest into reserve. That kind of fiscal responsibility takes courage, it takes leadership, and that's what North Carolina has shown. They've done it voluntarily. Now, in Colorado, we've also enjoyed, when I was there, we enjoyed economic success. But that's in part because the legislature was forced through a taxpayer's Bill of Rights to budget to rate of inflation plus population. So in other words, Coloradans keep more of their money. North Carolinians keep more of their money. What do they do with it? They invest it. They start new businesses. They generate wealth. You see the same thing, but in North Carolina, our legislature did it voluntarily. They understand the importance of it. So who wouldn't want to be part of this? And I get to lead the Locke Foundation and this incredibly talented staff into its fourth decade of that kind of work.
You know, it's so interesting to hear you talk about it because here in North Carolina, we know what's occurred over the past several years, and you laid it out perfectly. People are keeping more of what they earn. There's more job opportunity. Everybody wants to come here. And we always say, look, we've become a model for other states, but to hear you coming from Colorado, that's really true. People are looking at us here and saying, how did you do it? What was the recipe? And of course, here at the John Locke Foundation, we have been laying out those policies and recommendations for years. And over the past half decade or so, we've really seen a lot of progress with lawmakers actually picking up on a lot of that. One thing that's so important that comes out of this, I'd really love to hear your thoughts on this, is what happens to the next generation? Because now you're talking about the ability, for example, for parents to build wealth, pass it on to their kids, and give them a head start.
Well, so great question. And that's where our work here at the Locke Foundation is even more important. Because what we have to continue to do, you lay that foundation, now we have to continue that educational piece of telling people, letting the state know, here's how this wealth was created, and here's why it was created, and pass it on to the next generation. So North Carolina now, you poised to offer even more opportunity for the next generation. There's the research triangle. Okay, Colorado is going to try and challenge North Carolina on this, but the whole, craft beer industry.
Oh, it's big here. It is big here. Colorado will not win, trust me.
Well, and now that I'm a North Carolinian, I'll throw down the gauntlet. But just having that industry alone, one, attracting young people, but also it's almost like a microcosm of, you think about it used to just be these big, huge conglomerates. Now, anybody, small business owners starting up craft industries, it's craft beer. Now, what is the next craft? Whatever that is. But if our state legislature, if our elected officials continue with this kind of leadership where people keep more of their own money, they are fiscally responsible, and roll back regulations so that it's friendly to businesses. The sky is the limit for North Carolina. We're going to be a case study for every single other state. So we've seen a lot of people coming into North Carolina. I'm one of them. I suspect with the kind of leadership that has been shown at the state level in North Carolina, I think we're going to see more.
I'm so glad you brought up the issue of the craft beer industry and job creators and all that, because the Locke Foundation has been working on this issue of what we've dubbed alcohol freedom. And what we tell people is that it's really not about encouraging people to drink or anything like that. It's not that at all. We're talking about the freedom for people to start a business. And a lot of these craft beer entrepreneurs have literally done it like in their garage, and they have grown and grown, and there have been a lot of rules that were placed on them. And so we've been working hard to convince legislators, look, if you just ease up on the rules, why would you really need to impose that kind of a barrier on a person who's trying to be self-reliant, do something different, innovate? And we've been successful to a certain degree, but I'm sure, as you know, North Carolina is an alcohol control state. So that's one of the things that we're going to be working on. I know you're going to be very interested in that going forward.
Absolutely. I'm actually, one of the things that So North Carolina and Colorado are similar in some ways, but that is one of this alcohol control state.
Dates back to Prohibition.
I had not heard of that before, but feel like I will be drinking through a fire hose and not necessarily craft beer or vodka or some other spirit. But when it comes to learning that, but it is a prime example. That craft beer industry is a prime example that when you allow people to innovate and you unleash an entrepreneurial spirit. Look at where North Carolina is right now, and that really is a testament to the research of the Locke Foundation and then the leadership at the state level. I mean, that's really where that comes from.
Now, as the new CEO of the John Locke Foundation, not only will you be leading the team in terms of public policy and working with the legislature, but we certainly have a big journalism division here. Carolina Journal, the flagship publication, monthly print publication, daily online news site, and we have a whole team of writers there. You now become the publisher of Carolina Journal. And you have a bit of experience yourself being a writer and an author, and also in Colorado. There was some journalism work that has gone on there at your former job.
Right. Well, actually, it's kind of a heady title for somebody like me who I actually have a journalism degree. I got it at the University of Missouri, Columbia, a very good journalism school. It's in magazine journalism, so in long form journalism. But also, you're right, as an author, I've written everything from a master's thesis all the way down to, white papers, issue backgrounders.
I bet letters to the editor.
A handful. And opinion pieces, blog posts, you name it. I've also said, those of us who are not, I'm a better editor than I am a writer. I've often said, I always like the editing side, but
we need more editors, believe me,
right.
Everywhere.
but here's the thing with that. As we're seeing a change in the business model when it comes to journalism, where I came from at the Independence Institute, rather than constantly having to fight to get our information into traditional media, we just decided to go out and create our own, which is much like what John Locke did with the Carolina Journal. So, we don't whine about somebody not picking up a story. We just decided we would go out and create our own news media. And this complete Colorado, and this gets to the point of it's not enough to just have that outlet, but you actually you have to staff it well, maintain it. It has to be exceptional quality because you are new, right? And although Carolina Journal's been around a very long time, but it has to be exceptional quality. And I have a history of doing that when I was in Colorado, complete Colorado, for what they called a startup. We didn't even have a print piece, but over 2 million unique views in 2019, which was our goal. So the importance of having additional voices as what we would call traditional mainstream media struggles sort of to find its place and struggles with its business model. Having the Carolina Journal, I couldn't be more honored than to be the publisher of such an exceptional news outlet and all the talented staff. Expect more and better, even better.
So as publisher of Carolina Journal, as chief executive officer of the John Locke Foundation, you have your plate full, obviously, and learning much, much more about the state and how we can help to defend and advance liberty for sure. But also, you are a fun person. I mean, it's very clear. Our listeners can hear. You are an outgoing person and you have a lot of interest. Tell us a little bit more about Amy Cooke.
Well, thank you for asking. So I am an unapologetic free market capitalist, and I love to spread the word of freedom. And I'm just real quick, I'll say this. I'm actually probably I'm like your friend who just quit smoking, and they might be annoying. I am a converted capitalist, grew up in a very left of center household, so I always say I'm the worst kind. I'm the kind that, I'm the evangelist for it. But I also, other interests, I'm wildly competitive. I'll compete in darn near anything. If somebody brings in tiddlywinks or card throwing, I'll be the one right there trying to, in the fight. My passion is sports because I love the competition. I'm also a cyclist. I'm a hobby cyclist, so please don't put me on the Tour de France. But you may find me out in Asheville or out in the mountains, trying to navigate a up some climbs there. I'll probably go take my bike over to the coast and suffer through the heat and the humidity and the wind and everything else to ride there. So if you see somebody out, I know there aren't a ton of road cyclists on the roads in Raleigh, but you might find me some of the outlying parts of the state. And that's a great way for me to go out and meet people and learn about new communities. Oh gosh, let me tell you, last story. I actually
and you're a storyteller too.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
That's a radio. That was my radio. So I used to do radio. I dabbled in radio for 10 years. But I'm actually, I have family from North Carolina. People are saying, well, what do you have in North Carolina? I said, well, believe it or not, my namesake, my great-great-great-grandmother was born in North Carolina.
Okay,
in
that's
1786, right? So it took me, she left here anyway, she got married, and then her husband took her on an adventure. My great-great-great-grandfather took her on an adventure all the way to Missouri. And so it's taken us about 200 years to get her name back to North Carolina, but coming back to North Carolina, and this is kind of funny, apparently, I have a relative who was a lousy shot and died in a duel.
Oh,
up near, is it Mush Island? Is there Halifax County? I think is there? Yeah, so I have to go check records there. But that's.
So you've got history, but but now you are going to be telling your stories and your family's history on social media, and we have to talk. Last question here about your social media, because your Twitter handle is a hoot. Tell us about that.
So. Yeah, you might. I do like to have a good time, and we take our mission very seriously. We don't take ourselves seriously. But my name is Amy Cooke. My middle initial is O, so it's Amy O. Cooke. If you do the initials, it's AOC. So I have said I want to make AOC great again. I want to make it initials to be revered. So my Twitter handle, my new Twitter handle for especially now that I'm in North Carolina, is at the right AOC. And as I said, about the only thing I share in common with the other AOC is we both used to be bartenders, so there's that. But I said I'm a little older, a little wiser, with far better ideas.
Well, I'll tell you what, after hearing this interview, I have a feeling you're going to have a lot more followers on Twitter at The Right AOC. And of course, you can always follow the John Locke Foundation at John Locke NC and at Carolina Journal. Amy Cooke, we are going to have a great time here in 2020.
Listen, we have the best jobs ever. So if we aren't having fun, there's something wrong with us. But we're going to have a great time. Donna, thank you so much.
You are very welcome. Such a delight to talk with you. Amy Cooke, the new Chief Executive Officer of the John Locke Foundation and the new publisher of Carolina Journal.